You are not alone in the dark. You never were. Even when your hands tremble, your prayers fall silent, and the stars above you seem to vanish. The light has not left you. It is not the absence of light that makes darkness unbearable. It is the absence of meaning. The soul does not fear the night. It fears being forgotten in it. We are not creatures who merely walk on soil and breathe air. We are eternal souls wrapped in fragile skin, haunted not by monsters, but by silence, by the ache of not knowing why. Why did they leave? Why did it break? Why is it always the ones who tried hardest who are left bleeding on the floor? The pain is not just pain, it is the echo of Eden, a memory buried in the soul of a time when nothing was broken and everything was love. But now, you walk through nights that have no stars. You try to pray, but your voice feels ridiculous. You ask for signs, but the heavens give you none. You wonder quietly if God is still there or if he ever was. And here's the truth no one told you. Even Jesus, yes, even Jesus, and cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" If the Son of God could hang on a cross and feel abandoned, then perhaps our moments of despair are not signs of failure, but the birthplace of a deeper faith. The darkness is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It strips away the noise, the pride, the false lights, until you stand with nothing and find that nothing is where the light finally speaks, not in thunder, not in spectacle, but in a whisper. The soul is not destroyed by suffering. It is revealed. You think you're losing your way, but what you're losing is your illusion of control. And beneath it is something unshakable, something holy. You were never meant to walk by sight. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the courage to walk anyway, to move forward not because the path is lit, but because your soul still believes there must be a path, and that is where the light lives. Not in the clarity of your mind, but in the stubborn, trembling hope that refuses to die, even when everything else has. So if you're walking through darkness, know this: you are not being punished. You are being purified when the world goes silent, when prayers echo like stones in an empty well. You're being invited into a sacred kind of seeing, the kind that does not depend on eyes. It is not easy. No one said it would be. But it is beautiful, because in the dark, you finally stop looking outward and begin looking in. And there, in that quiet place where no one sees you, God is forming something immortal. Not comfort, not ease, but courage, wisdom, character, compassion. He is forming the kind of soul that can carry light into other people's night. Not by speaking perfect answers, but by being a presence that doesn't flinch when things fall apart. Because you've been there. You know what it's like. You survived your own storm, and you didn't just survive, you became someone new, someone who doesn't need to shine, because now you are light. There is a moment in every life when the soul must walk without a map, no signposts, no guiding stars, just the steady ache of existence, and the question, what now? We are taught, in softer seasons, that faith is light. But the older truth is this: faith is walking when there is no light and still calling it morning. The darkness is not proof of God's absence. It is the stage upon which his presence becomes unmistakable. Not loud, not grand, but unmistakable. Like the warmth of a hand you cannot see but feel. Like the memory of a song you have never heard, yet somehow know. Some truths are too holy to shout. They must be whispered, and whispered truths only reach the soul when the world around us grows quiet. The darkness removes our distractions, our idols, our false gods, not as punishment, but as mercy, because as long as the soul can cling to counterfeit light, it will never hunger for the real one. And hunger, real hunger, is the beginning of revelation. We do not truly begin to see until we are starving for sight. We do not truly begin to listen until we have run out of words. And in that desperation, when we are no longer polished, no longer proud, we finally become honest. Not just with God, but with ourselves. The masks fall, the performance ends, and what remains is the truth. And the truth is this: you were never strong enough to carry your own soul. That was never the design. You were made to lean, to rest, to be held. All your striving, your constant pushing, fixing, achieving, it only ever delayed the one moment that could heal you. The moment you surrender. Surrender not as defeat, but as return. Return to the arms that held you before the world ever touched you. Return to the voice that knew your name before you were formed. You were not made to conquer the dark. You were made to carry the flame. And what is the flame? It is the light of knowing you are not alone. It is the flicker of grace that keeps burning even when the winds howl. It is small, but it is enough, because light doesn't need to be loud, it only needs to be real, and the tiniest spark still defeats the whole night. So stop trying to escape the darkness. Stop waiting for it to pass. Let it teach you, let it break you, but only the parts that were never real. Let it undo you, so that God can remake you. You do not need to pretend. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be willing. Willing to walk forward, even if your steps are small. Even if your heart still doubts. Because what matters is not how loudly you believe, but how faithfully you keep going. Every soul has a midnight. Yours is not a failure. It is a passage, a holy in-between, where heaven bends low to light a candle you cannot see, but that still warms you. And maybe that's all the light you need. Not to see the whole road, but just to know you are still seen. There is a silence deeper than sound, a stillness that doesn't feel peaceful, but empty. It is the silence of unanswered prayers, of nights spent weeping into pillows, of days when you show up, smile, nod. But inside, you are breaking in places no one can see. And yet, this silence may be more sacred than you think, because this is the moment the soul begins to shed its skin, to drop every layer that was never truly you, the people-pleasing, the fear, the belief that your worth was measured by applause. Here, in the silence, you are being remade. It doesn't feel holy, but it is. What feels like being forgotten is often the beginning of being found. God is not in a hurry. He would rather take years shaping your soul in secret than allow you to succeed in a lie. He is more committed to who you're becoming than to what you're achieving. And sometimes, the only way to reveal the gold is through fire. So if your world is burning, perhaps it is not punishment, but purification. The ache in your chest is not weakness. It is the sound of walls falling down, walls you didn't know you built to keep the pain out. But that also kept love out, kept truth out. Now the walls are cracking, and it's terrifying, but it's also sacred. Because for the first time, God can reach you without barrier. No more pretending, no more hiding behind theology or performance or strength. Only your raw, trembling self. And that is the place He's been waiting to meet you all along. You see, we imagine that God comes to us in stained glass moments, in cathedrals, in songs sung on key, in prayers spoken with confidence, but more often, He comes to us when we have nothing left, when we are too weak to stand and too numb to sing. He comes to us in prison cells of the heart, in the hollow stare, in the question that has no answer. He comes to us not as lightning, but as a whisper in the wreckage, because it is there, when we are completely undone, that we are finally ready to listen. The soul learns more in silence than in all the sermons in the world. Because in silence there are no distractions, only presence, and presence is where transformation begins. You wanted answers, you got presence. You wanted light, you were given a spark. You wanted out, God wanted in, and now you are being reformed, invisibly, quietly, eternally. You are walking through darkness, but the light walks with you, not ahead, not behind, with you. So take heart, not because it will all make sense, but because it will all be worth it. Your tears are not wasted. Your ache is not wasted. Your journey is not wasted, because every step through this night is forming a soul that can carry morning. And when you finally reach it, when light breaks in again, you won't be who you were. You will be something stronger, softer, truer. Not because you escaped the darkness, but because you walked through it without losing the light. There comes a sacred turning, not when the darkness disappears, but when it no longer has power over you. You stop pleading for the night to end and start listening to what it came to teach. The fear softens, the anger rests, and what remains is humility, not the kind that shrinks you, but the kind that frees you. You begin to realize that life was never about holding everything together, but about learning to be held by grace, by love, by a presence too vast to explain and too close to deny. And maybe for the first time you stop asking why and start asking who. Not, why is this happening to me? But who is this making me become? And that question is where the soul begins to rise, because now you are no longer walking through darkness as a victim. You are walking through it as a pilgrim. There is no shame in your tears anymore. You've stopped hiding them. They are no longer signs of weakness, but sacred water that softens the soil of your soul for something new to grow. You've stopped needing to be impressive. You've stopped needing to be understood. And in their place, a new hunger begins to grow, a hunger not for clarity but for truth, not for control but for trust, not for escape but for presence. You begin to see beauty where you never saw it before, in the quiet faith of someone still standing, in the kindness of a stranger, in the flicker of sunrise through the prison bars of your own heart, and you realize the light was never gone. It was just hidden beneath the noise. It wasn't the darkness that blinded you. It was your refusal to sit with it, to feel it, to let it open something inside you that comfort never could. Pain has a way of piercing the illusions we build around ourselves. It does not flatter, it does not negotiate, but it is honest, and honesty is the beginning of transformation. So now, as you walk, not with answers but with open hands, you are no longer afraid of the dark, because you have met yourself there. And more importantly, you have met God there, not the God you imagined, shiny and untouchable, but the God who weeps with you, who walks with you, who whispers in the cracks of your brokenness. I was always here, and you believe him. Not because he explained everything, but because he stayed, because the greatest miracle is not the storm stopping, it's the soul still standing after the storm has passed, and yours is still standing. Yes, it is tired. Yes, it has scars, but it is still here, and that is no small thing. That is sacred, that is victory, that is light. And now, you no longer fear the silence. You no longer curse the night, because somewhere along the path what was once unbearable has become unspeakably holy. This is what no one told you. The darkness wasn't sent to destroy you. It was sent to strip away everything that was not truly you. You have not lost the light. You have become it, not by knowing all the answers, not by fixing what was broken, but by remaining, by not turning away, by standing still while the storm howled and refusing to bow to despair. You see now, the silence of God was not rejection. It was invitation. It was the call to go deeper than the noise, to find him not in lightning or fire, but in the stillness, in the whisper. That whisper has shaped you. It has rewritten the story you tell yourself. No longer, I am abandoned. Now, I am becoming. No longer, I'm lost. Now I'm being led, and this is the second peak, that holy moment when the soul doesn't just survive darkness, but carries light into it for others. You will meet people still walking through the same night that almost killed you, and now your scars will speak what words cannot. You don't need to explain the pain, you just need to be present, because your presence is proof that healing is real, that faith survives. that God stays, and maybe, just maybe, that is why you went through it. Not for answers, but for compassion, not to be rescued, but to become someone who can walk with others when their world falls apart. You are now a keeper of sacred fire, a guardian of the quiet hope, a living reminder that the light does not leave, even when everything else does. So to the one still wandering, still weeping, still whispering, "Why?" you can now say, "I know, I was there, I understand." And your understanding will be more healing than any sermon could ever be, because the truth is this: we do not grow by escaping the night. We grow by learning to glow within it. The goal was never to return to who you were. It was to awaken who you were always meant to become. And that soul, your soul, is more radiant now than ever, because it knows the truth that only darkness can teach, that God is not found in the absence of suffering, but in the middle of it, not in perfection, but in presence, not in having it all together, but in being held together by something greater. So maybe, all this time, the darkness was not the enemy, it was the veil, and behind the veil there was light, there was love, there was God, and he never left.